Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there, and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 681. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and temples and lighthouses, monkeys and overnight trains, and tuk-tuks as we go to Chennai in India. Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Let's talk about Chennai. I'd like to welcome the show Amanda from Millennial Traveler. That's Traveler with two L's, the UK way. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me as a guest.
And Amanda has come on to talk about southern India, Chennai. And Amanda, what's your connection with Chennai?
Well, I must say that I got introduced to southern India specifically because I actually had studied abroad with friends that came from Chennai. And years thereafter, they were continuously inviting me to go to India. So when I found myself in Southeast Asia, I decided to take a detour and reconnect with old friends and get a local point of view about the city of Chennai.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Chennai, India?
First of all, it does break a lot of the stereotypes regarding India. It is much more of a spacious city than you would find other cities like Delhi and Mumbai. So I would say it's much less chaotic of an atmosphere. Secondly, it also has been ranked one of the most safest cities within India as well as Southeast Asia, and also in regards to the safest city for women. So I think that should be appealing initially because I know some people have a lot of hesitation about traveling to India in general.
Yeah, at least solo travel, especially. For some people, that's a real barrier.
Yes, definitely. So I would say if you want to start solo traveling in India, I would definitely go to Chennai as your starter city because it has been ranked for its quality of living and safetiness, as mentioned.
Well, and I should say this is not our first show on India, and so people can go listen to those. What we do actually have one on solo travel for women in India if you go way, 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 way back in the archives, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And what kind of itinerary do you recommend?
Yeah, so I think Chennai is the city. It's not too overwhelming. So you can literally explore the city within about 4 days. And I would say there could be extra days left for traveling to the outer parts, which I definitely want to get into.
Okay.
Now, for the actual days within the city, first and foremost, you need to go to Marina Beach, which is really a world famous beach because it is indeed the second largest urban beach in the world, which is pretty amazing and has such character and charm there. You can find a lot of carnival style activities going on, as well as it's really awesome being a coastal city that Chennai is. You get to witness the fishermen, if you wake up early enough, getting their catch of the day. And honestly, if you can do that and you get to the markets in time, you will have some of the freshest seafood you have ever tasted on earth.
One thing I should have said before we got into that is there's going to be some confusion for some people who are more my age than yours, who may not have heard of Chennai, but may have heard of the city of Madras. And this is the same city. It changed the names in 1996, I see. So some people don't realize that we're talking about a place they have heard of, but that the name has changed since they had it in elementary school, geography, or wherever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point to make. And indeed, so yeah, the millennial generation may know it as Chennai, but yes, it was formerly known as Madras. That is true. So everything has changed. Of course, the airport name would have changed. The railway station had been Chennai Central Railway, but now has a very complicated name as of this year. So I can't pronounce that one, but that's worth visiting as well. The railway station is amazing.
Okay. So this is an old colonial style railway station, I'm guessing?
The neo-Gothic architecture, which is quite amazing, I believe is built by a European architect, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the most fantastic railway structures I've seen. So if you're a fan of that style of architecture or railway stations, I know a lot of people are passionate about that. It's great. And it's the main connecting hub to other cities. It's the train station, which I actually took to go to Bangalore, India, which is in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
Chennai itself being in Tamil Nadu. And in addition to that, I would also highly recommend going to the St. Thomas Cathedral, also known as the Sandham Cathedral. It has a lot of biblical history, actually, being that, in fact, Thomas, one of Jesus' disciples, his last ministry in India, Chennai specifically. So they have built that cathedral and shrine dedicated to him. So I thought that was also very amazing and a great historical account of one of these disciples.
Let's go back up and do this a little more detail. So when you talked about going to the beach, we're going to the beach for usual beach activities. Are we swimming in the water? Is it clean enough, safe enough to swim in? Are there water sports? Are we sunbathing? What are we doing when we go to the beach besides, you mentioned some festivals or other things that are going on there?
One appeal, again, especially for seafood lovers, is to come early in the morning, anywhere between 3 to 6 a.m. So you can actually watch the fishermen at work because they don't go too far deep out. And then they'll bring their catch of the day back, sell it out to the stalls in the marketplace. So it's quite bustling there in terms of the food stalls. And that's where you can get some of the finest seafood in India and might be one of the greatest in the world I've personally tasted. So that's something exciting to see there, the fisherman activity that takes place, as well as the carnival activities that are there.
Small boat fishermen pulling their boats onto the shore sort of thing? Okay.
Small boat fishermen, and that's what makes it so amazing. So these people are obviously doing it for a living, and you can see the whole marketplace action thereafter. So everything from actually getting the catch of the day to selling it directly to the market stalls to having your food freshly prepared right in front of you.
Okay. My early indication here is that we're going to talk about food more than once in this episode.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, I will definitely mention that. And quite a few restaurants as well. This city is very centered on food and seafood, of course, in particular, being that it's a coastal city of India.
Okay. Well, and food in southern India being different as food in northern India, but I think we'll save that for just a little bit. So you took us to the railway station, you took us to the cathedral. Anything specific we want to say in terms of the railway station where it's an Instagram opportunity? Is there anything else we want to do while we're there?
Well, besides that, I would say, yeah, of course, it's an Instagram opportunity, I guess. What structure isn't nowadays?
Yeah.
But that's where if you want to find yourself taking a day trip and not having to drive directly out of state, that's a great link to the
Sure.
popular route between Chennai and Bangalore. And Bangalore is a very popular city. My friends constantly go on weekend trips from Chennai by car or by train. So that's something definitely is just worth noting. If you want to go beyond Chennai, definitely make use of that railway station.
Excellent. And then we'll get back to Bangalore in just a little bit in terms of your side trip. And then again, in terms of the cathedral, anything else you want to say in terms of things? Should we do a tour of the cathedral or just go in? Is there anything specific sites you want to point out?
Tour probably wouldn't be necessary. It's quite small.
Okay.
Typically, if you arrive during the daytime, I would say it's fairly empty, but it takes you back to Europe. I mean, whoever has been to the European cathedrals, it's definitely that European style and stained glass windows. I mean, I felt transported, honestly. I didn't realize I was in India anymore. And then the lower level, if you want to make sure you go and check out the shrine, like I said, of Thomas the Disciple, which I thought was pretty incredible because somebody read about in the Bible, and now we're actually standing in the last place he was.
Excellent. And then where to next?
Before we completely leave Marina Beach, because St. Thomas Cathedral is not too far from there,
Oh, okay.
a must-see as well is actually the Chennai Lighthouse, and you will get a spectacular view of the entire beach, this aerial view. And what's great about this lighthouse is one of the few in the world that actually have an elevator. So if you have a fear of heights, it's not a problem. Furthermore, if you want to see one of the most famous Hindu temples within the city, make sure you go to, I hope I don't butcher this name, but the Kapalishwarar temple. Now, I have to say, I did expect it to be more grandiose in size. So according to local friends and tour guides, this is definitely the most frequented temple and most famous temple within the city of Chennai. However, I just want to make note for tourists, as we are indeed foreigners, you won't get to have entry into the shrine. So I just want to make sure people know that when they go in, you can enter the temple if you remove your shoes and if you are dressed appropriately, but you won't be able to get the shrine entry. But if you're curious about that and you want to see where the local people go, this is the most frequented temple.
And the outside of it is fairly intricate and interesting, well, is probably the right word in terms of all the different figures on this temple, if I've got the right one that I'm thinking of.
Yes, it is fairly detailed. So definitely you can make a pit stop there. I think that is in the Mylapore neighborhood, which is also a great neighborhood to explore thereafter once you visited the temple.
And you say great neighborhood to explore. What particularly would you recommend that we look for or do or in that neighborhood?
So in this particular neighborhood, there are some great food stalls you can go to. So again, taste the local food they're selling there, which will definitely vary from what you get in northern India cities like Delhi, for example. So that's really great. If you're there in the morning, you can check out the South Indian breakfast and have dosa, which is this very flat, thin layered pancake. It kind of would remind you of a crepe, but a different texture. So that's something really great to try if you're there, as well as if you're looking for any kind of souvenirs related to the Hindu temple, related to the dress, buying saris, for example. It's a perfect place to go for both shopping and food.
And is dosa for breakfast eaten with anything else? It is like a pancake, so is it eat fresh off the griddle at the food stall, or do you have it with something? I don't know.
Well, you can have it either way, actually, but typically, I guess it can be served with a chutney. So in my case, something I was introduced into by the Southern Indians is the coconut chutney. I don't know how common it is in the north, but I quite like ground coconut with other types of herbs and spices added to it. So that was really delicious and surprisingly filling breakfast to have.
Okay. And anything else we should grab from a food stall while we're in Chennai?
Definitely you want to check out the biryani, which is just a classic Indian dish. One of my other favorites I found was the mango curry. And now this might be unheard of to a lot of people because I also thought, how great will curry taste with fruit? I'm not sure. I was skeptical about this particular dish, but it turned out to be really delicious and not very sweet at all, but savory.
Well, and we should say biryani, find it all over the country, really a northern dish. Basically coming from the Muslims who came in, and very similar to dishes that you would find in Afghanistan, for instance, or Pakistan, although spicier usually probably down here in southern India.
Yes, and it's definitely important to get like the seafood version as well, because like I said, Chennai is really well known for its seafood. So then that will kind of make it more southern in style, since like seafood will be more dominant in this city.
Got it. Okay. Where to next?
So next, also for the lovers of shopping, and if you want to go into more classic boutiques or upscale shopping centers and see more of that affluent shopping district, there's a really well-known shopping neighborhood. It is in the T Nagar neighborhood. So I'm sure when people, look at their tour guides or search online, you will definitely find loads of information about this place. But this I found great for souvenir shopping, for example, shopping for saris, just native style dress. I mean, anything in particular you're looking for that you want to find as like a remnant of India, you could find here in this neighborhood.
What did you bring back?
I got in particular a sari. I've always wanted one of those. It's just a matter of myself learning how to actually wear it properly. That takes a bit of work.
And did your friends or did the people at the stalls help you figure out how to tie and get into and out of a sari?
Absolutely. So if you're a first-time sari wearer, then don't worry about it because you will have such great assistance. And, that's what I love about Chennai, especially that everyone's, very friendly and welcoming. I never felt any hostility at all being in this city. But I think for me, I was also lucky because I do have dark black hair, so it helped. Like, I think a lot of people actually probably thought I was from northern India. So, I mean, whatever works.
All right, where to?
So from here, I think if you're looking for kind of more of a laid back break, I would say you can also head over to People's Park, which is another fantastic park where we see a lot of families and young people gathering, and just take a stroll through there if you want to see some greenery and relaxation. And then secondly, there's also another beach worth noting that has one of the restaurants on my list located nearby, actually, which I will get to. That beach is called Basant Nagar, and there's also a lot of activity going on there. I know they have some places overlooking the sea where a lot of young people congregate and families congregate, so you can have like rooftop view of the sea and different events going on nearby within this area. It's a very bustling, active neighborhood of the city of Chennai.
Well, and you say very bustling neighborhood. We didn't mention this. We're not talking about a small town in India when we talk about Chennai. I think it's the 6th most populous city.
I found different numbers on this, but my latest one was that it's the 4th largest city in India.
I see 4th most populous urban area. So it depends on where you draw it, but big is the bottom line here. Population is millions. I didn't even actually see how big it was, but
so the 2019 data, if we want to break it down, I mean, it has been ranked the 4th largest Indian city currently, as well as it is a population of nearly 10 million.
Okay.
That's according to this year's data. And plus it is the capital of Tamil Nadu, which is the South Indian. I guess we have to expect it to be the most prominent. And I know many people from the north also will come down to work in Chennai too.
Got it. Well, and it's in South India, but we didn't put it on the map in South India. It is very far north in South India, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, we all have to practice our geography to get it straight.
Where to next?
So now, actually, I also need to mention if you are interested in renting a car, which would make it easier, but I'm sure you can also take an Uber that's available. It's really great if you go and you visit the East Coast Road, which is also known as ECR to the locals. And now along this road, it will actually lead you into many day trips you can take. And not only that, it has different other coastal line beaches, which you can see, and also leads up to places that are really well known. Like Pondicherry is known for being this kind of European influence beach town, so that's somewhere you can go. Or if you just want to check out different types of atmosphere, this is a great place to drive along the East Coast Road.
Now, what is driving like in India?
Well, I fortunately did not drive. Thankfully, my friends were there. But
Okay.
I have to tell you, you're going to have to brace yourself if you're driving within the city. It is a capital city, let's not forget.
Yeah, within the city, that seems like, oh my gosh, no.
I have to be honest, unless you're a native of this country or another highly trafficked city in Asia and you're familiar with this style of driving, because it is a style
This
and it is
style
an
of
art,
driving,
let me
as
tell
in
you.
lanes are optional and
Exactly.
not even optional, ignored. Lanes do not exist.
Lanes do not exist in Chennai until the traffic has died down. Maybe people will stick to their lane, but you have to remember in a city, like in most Indian and Asia cities, we've got a variety of traffic. So it's not only
Sure.
trucks and cars, that's the norm, but you're also going to have tons of motorbikes, rickshaws,
Sure, right.
bicycles. You've got to brace yourself for all different forms of traffic. So I don't recommend driving.
Cows there as you'd find up in Varanasi, maybe, but
No, I did not see too many
Yeah.
cows interfering with the traffic and trying to cross the road.
No, I wouldn't
So
expect
there's
that
less of
there.
that.
So, but then when you get out of the city, which I might actually think about driving as you get out of the city, because I've gotten outside, not in southern India, but in northern India, there was the traffic less intimidating, let's say.
Definitely. You won't find yourself as piled up as you do as the inner city of Chennai, being that it is the capital of the state and it is the most highly populous city, right? So you won't have a problem. So I say, yes, you should rent a car
But
perhaps if
but do it at
you're
the
planning on
airport or
leaving.
someplace out of town is what I'm hearing.
Right. If you're going out of town, then I think it's doable. But I do not recommend any cars within the city of Chennai unless you're from there
Okay.
locally or you're from India and you know how to handle it. I don't recommend it to a tourist.
And there's even a good chance the car was actually built in Chennai. I guess they call it the Detroit of India. 1/3 of the cars built in India are built there.
Right. So, yeah, possibly quite so. And in addition to that, so other ways you can travel around, since I find that this is really important, since we're not going to be utilizing a car within Chennai.
Right.
Basically, what I relied upon, I was lucky I had friends that drove. That was an exception. But when that was not the case, I did have to make alternative plans. And I personally relied on Uber a lot. I have to tell you, it was one of my best experiences with Uber. The drivers I had were really lovely. I had been the first foreigner they had. So they were excited about having me in their city, which was great. It was just so incredibly cheap. I can't even tell you, I only paid barely a few dollars to even go like 20, 30 minutes within the city. So very affordable, lovely drivers, extremely reliable service. Now, if you really want to get into the Indian culture, I think this is a must try if you're brave enough. You must get on a rickshaw. When it's not highly trafficked, when it's not rush hour, I would say definitely do that. I went at the wrong timing, to be honest, but I still enjoyed it. I just could barely breathe with all the heavy fumes going on during that hour of the day.
Well, and when you say a rickshaw, bicycle rickshaws, there's the motorized tuk-tuks, and is there something else that I'm not thinking of? And which one are you talking about?
No, I think that's all. Okay, so in my sense, I'm talking about the motorized
Okay, the tuk-tuks.
vehicle. Yeah. Okay, they do call it tuk-tuks in South India. I didn't realize. I just
Well, I don't know what they call it in South India, but in Northern India, it's a tuk-tuk. Now, that's going to be a little different than the Uber. In the Uber, you get in, and you've already negotiated how much you're paying, and you're paying with the app. You walk into a tuk-tuk, and it's going to be more interesting.
You got to put on your negotiating hat in this case. And I mean, I love negotiating. Is it because I'm from New York? Possibly so. But you're going to have to negotiate and be prepared for some steep prices. So it's better as a tourist going into anywhere, especially somewhere like India. Foreigners, you may or may not get taken advantage of. You need to know what the rates would be ordinarily. Maybe ask around to the local people, or if you have some local friends, do your research on that. But be prepared to negotiate the price and get that fixed price in advance.
Well, and the other thing there, I think, and if you go back to the episode we did when we took the group to India of amateur traveler listeners, is it's not that intimidating. I would definitely double your recommendation of this is something you should do. It's an easy way to get around. And even if you're paying twice as much or 3 times as much as a foreigner or whatever, it's still cheap, right? We're not talking about something that is expensive. The only thing that I would watch out for is we occasionally had, oh, you can't go there. Would you like to go here instead? And some of that, it was wouldn't you love to stop at my friend's clothing shop, or would you?
Mm-hmm. That's funny. That's happened to me in so many Asian countries, actually. Yeah. It's a very common scam and deterrence.
I don't even know if I would go as far as scam. It's just more how things work. And you can say no, and it's fine, but you just need to be aware that that's something, that opportunity may impose itself. And on the other hand, you may have a great experience because someone wants to stop at that temple you weren't planning on stopping at. We had that happen as well. So it's a very much not the Uber experience of I'm going from here to there and I'm paying this much.
Yes. I mean, again, it won't be too expensive, as you mentioned, because of the conversion rate of, like, let's say US dollars into Indian rupees, for example. But if you really want to know what you're getting, what you're paid for, then you've got to go with the ride-sharing option. So yes, I use Uber because that's what I'm familiar with. But they do have an Indian service that's quite similar called Ola. So you can opt for either one, but Uber works just fine.
Konnichiwa, I'm Yuki, a tour leader with Explore. Who knew that hidden among Tokyo's towering skyscrapers was a peaceful tea house surrounded by ancient trees and serene ponds? Actually, I knew. It was my mother's secret sanctuary. Not everyone knows about Tokyo's Hamarikyu Gardens. ありがとうございます. But you will if you explore. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel, explore.
Excellent. What else do people need to know? Any other places you want to highlight?
Yes. Can we go a bit further afield than Chennai?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So in that case, I would say one spot that many tourists would not be familiar with and they wouldn't come across is actually the Madras Crocodile Bank. And as far as I know, they haven't changed it to Chennai Crocodile Bank. So that's pretty amazing in the sense you get to see these crocodiles, in their habitat and without the fences for the most part. So there is, of course, a barrier, but it's not like they're in this enclosed cage. They actually have this openness. So, I mean, no need to fear anything, but it's great to me because they're more in their natural environment and you get to get a bit more up close and personal with them.
Are we at the banks of a river or at the saltwater crocodiles, or where are we?
Well, this is actually not too far. I think it's off of the East Coast Drive that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. Yep.
So it'll be like along that drive and it's not too far outside the city. I think it is less than about a half an hour, I would say.
Got it. Okay.
From Chennai. Well, it's definitely a great pit stop along the East Coast Drive. Again, if you do decide to rent a car or if you have kids with you and they want to experience that, that's also a great way. So I thought that was pretty interesting that it was centered on crocodiles and you could get these pictures. I had, the crocodile in the rear view of my photo. So I thought that was pretty cool with there being like this metal fence between me and the actual animal.
Okay.
So pretty nice to see them in that environment. In addition to that, I went further afield and I actually did this really incredible hike. Now, this one is for the nature lovers, the hikers, and those that do not have fear of monkeys because you will encounter them. By the way, that's another surprise for those who've never been to India in general. So this place is called Tata Falls. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from Chennai, but I will tell you that it is well worth it and it's probably the best hiking experience I've done to date.
Wow.
So why I like this one specifically, I mean, it's gorgeous, the landscapes. You have to drive very deep into this mountainous region to actually reach the hiking trail. Once you're in, you cross over some bridges, pass by near temples, and then finally you find yourself engulfed in this forested land. And it's more of that rocky style terrain. So definitely be forewarned of that. Wear the proper shoes, dress accordingly, because it is going to be a rough terrain to hike on. And then by the time you reach the end of it, which I would say takes about an hour and a half each way, if you are really strong and tough and you make it and you don't stop going, it will end at a waterfall. Make sure also the time of year you're going is appropriate for that, because the time I went in the summertime, I don't know, for some reason it wasn't as full as it should have been, but it was still worth going for the experience. And the other thing to note is during this hiking experience, there will be wild animals, but not the ones that Americans are necessarily used to. I'm not talking about squirrels or maybe you think a bear you see in the distance. I mean, there will be monkeys. And if you are going to be snacking along the trail, please be aware because we had some monkey snatchers trying to grab our food. They will not attack you specifically, but they will go after the food. So sure. I definitely want to make note of this. That honestly is so funny with me because I knew there was monkeys in India, but I guess I completely forgot about it. So when I saw one, I was really taken aback. And then I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. India has monkeys. Okay. Like loose in the forest.
Well, even sometimes in the cities, but yes. Well, and it looks like this falls has a more long and confusing name for me that I can't possibly pronounce correctly, but Ubalamudugu Falls.
Right. I was not going to try to pronounce that.
I will take the hit for pronouncing that badly.
Yes, but it's also known to the locals. And my friend even called it, Tata Falls. So Tata Falls is perfectly fine. And I'm sure the Ubers will go out there, or you can even rent a car because, as I said, it won't be as heavily trafficked along this route. So in addition to that, I also went to... Now, this name, again, is a really tough one to pronounce, so please forgive me if this is not correct. It is called Mahabalipuram. which is actually also known to locals as well as Mahabs for short. So again, if you mention Mahabs instead of Mahabalipuram, people also know what you're talking about in case you're in need of directions or whatnot. And now this site is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which I thought was very amazing because you wouldn't think that this is in South India because it's lesser known or lesser visited than the northern parts of India. And here on site, you'll find the Shore Temple, which dates back to 8th century AD. Another part that I really liked here, besides this temple, which is actually quite small, by the way, I didn't get a chance to actually enter into it because the lines were just tremendous. The earlier you arrive, the better at any type of these sites, especially when it's one that is often visited by locals as much as tourists. So I think people have to keep that in mind when they go. So yes, in addition to visiting the Shore Temple on this UNESCO heritage site, it is very important to make a trip down the road because everything is a little bit spaced out on the site, by the way, but it's all walkable once you actually arrive at Mahabs. But do go to the actual lighthouse there. And this is so worth seeing. I mean, it has actually a better view than the one in Chennai. So the one in Chennai Marina Beach is incredible too. That overlooks the beach. But this view is way better than the one in Chennai because you're not seeing any beach. It's actually just the forestry surrounding this UNESCO heritage site, as well as the mountain in the distance. It's just such a tremendous view. But in this case, I have to warn people in advance that there's no elevator available, so you will have to be brave and climb this very steep, narrow stairwell. I have to say, I was quite concerned as I was going up the stairwell because people are going to be shuffling in and out on the line because there's only a limited number of people that can come in and out of the lighthouse deck. So just definitely be forewarned with that. It might not be great, this one, for someone with fear of heights because you will be climbing a stairwell. But I mean, check it out for yourself. And if you do brave it to the top, then it is totally worth going there.
And then I see that the UNESCO site also has cave temples. Did you see those while you were there in addition to the Shore Temple?
Yes, in fact, that cave temple, one of them is right beside the lighthouse. So if you're planning on walking on over there, it's literally right next to it. So I did go in there. And again, it's like a quite small in terms of size and appearance, but it does have a lot of intricate carvings within because it's a rock cut. So that was pretty cool to see all these rock carvings that are obviously very, historical and preserved. And that's just next to the lighthouse.
Well, and when you were talking about this being busy and getting up early and getting there early, and then also missed asking you the question when you were talking about the waterfall that this time of year it wasn't as big. What time of year were you in southern India?
So again, I was there during the summertime. That was July. And we actually would have expected that it would have been more of a full formed waterfall, but it was like less powerful than its normal appearance. So I would say that was in the summertime.
Okay.
So I think perhaps maybe earlier in the year it would have been fuller, but at this time of year, I guess due to the weather and climate conditions, it was not as fully formed as it was. But again, even though it was a smaller waterfall than we anticipated as our reward, I think it's still a great experience. And again, if you're a nature lover, a hiker, a monkey lover, definitely go to Tata Falls.
Well, and I want to say, and I don't know if I'm correct here, that the monsoon season is later in the year.
That's right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Monsoon season is lasting from June to September normally, is what I'm reading here.
I barely saw rain. I think I got really fortunate. I think it rained a handful of times, and I was there for about a month total. The heat is excruciating though, so I still recommend take your chances with the monsoon season, but later on in the year, because the heat will be extremely intense. Like I went, it was generally upwards of like 90s, like into 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit.
With a lot of humidity, I'm thinking.
Yes, there's a lot of humidity there. And in fact, I'm not ashamed to say this, but I found myself taking a shower nearly 3 times a day just because of the intensity of the heat. So unless, you're prepared to do that and you're all right with like sweating, on a regular basis, just simply strolling down the street, you have to be very aware of that temperature is quite intense in the summertime.
Excellent.
So yes, still at Mahabs. Again, like the different sites are spread out on the grounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the other third and final part of Mahabs that is a must-see, the name is actually called Butterball, which is really fascinating. It's actually this gigantic boulder that has been unmoved on this tilt. So it's actually on this like slanted
Huh.
area, and then it's on this tilt. So basically it hasn't been moved. People have tried to move it with the power of elephants. That boulder has not been able to be moved, nor has it been shaken. So there's something very incredible about that rock structure, and you find a lot of people taking their Instagram shots there and pretending that they're carrying the boulder on their back. So it's a quite popular site on this particular UNESCO heritage site, and is definitely one that should not be missed because it's something we've never seen before.
Okay. Not quite the spectacular carvings like in the other places, but yeah.
No, I know. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think when I heard like, okay, this is a boulder, like what's so fantastic? But then my friend explained to me that it's been on this angle, this
Right.
tilt. So if you just imagine like this enormous boulder, and you would think, okay, if it's on this tilted hill, this angle, it's going to come crashing down. It's going to come rolling down. But this thing has stayed put, could not be shifted, like I said, with the power of elephants or anything. So it's something I think they find very mythical and supernatural according to the Hindu religion.
Just missing Sisyphus. So
Right. So it's something supernatural to the local people, and it's something pretty cool for the tourists as well, and great photograph opportunity, I would say.
excellent. Where to?
And in addition to that, so the final actual trip I did, this one was much further outside, and this is actually going into the state of Karnataka state.
Okay.
And the main city there being well known for the IT companies it hosts. And the IT hub of India actually is Bangalore. So this one is for those that want to have an amazing train journey. It was on my bucket list. I definitely want to experience the train ride in India. So I got to do both the daytime train as well as the sleeper train, which was pretty cool to me. I mean, I honestly didn't sleep on my ride. I had a guy snoring next to me, but aside from that, I kind of paid for it the whole weekend. But hey, I still wanted that experience. I'm like, oh, I've never been in a sleeper train. This sounds amazing.
Well, and did you do the first class or the second class with air conditioning, or the second class, or there's a lot of different options?
Right. I'm pretty sure we were in the second class with air conditioning because we didn't have complete privacy.
Sure.
So I was in the
So
space. So we
60
four beds.
people in one car, no doors, 3 bunks, tiers.
Yeah, 3 bunk tiers.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, mine was, let me see, 4 bunks on one side and then 2 bunks stacked to the side. So there was 4 in one, 2 on the other. So we had 6 per area and going down the range. It was definitely an experience. I mean, I'm glad I did it, like I said, regardless of the fact that I didn't sleep. I guess you have to be prepared for that. But if you want to have this cool overnight train experience and travel like the locals do, which I always like doing personally, I highly recommend that. And there's different classes. You can always upgrade your experience to first class if you want to. Then this ride is about a 6 to 7 hour train ride from Chennai. You would go to that main railway station that I mentioned earlier, and then the ride is about 6 to 7 hours from Chennai to Bangalore. Now, in Bangalore, you can visit several temples there. They have one amazing temple called the Golden Temple, which is what the name describes as plated, very ornate, opulent, totally different style. As well as there's the Bangalore Castle, which is pretty historical as well. And they have an incredible food scene in Bangalore. I think it was really wonderful to sample all the different ice cream shops there are there. Great food restaurants. One was called the Egg Factory that was solely based on all dishes being derived from egg alone. So whether it was dessert or savory, I felt like their food scene was really up to date. So I think it's something very incredible and very westernized, very European influenced. Great place to visit. And by the way, I need to add this. The temperature in Bangalore, even though it was the summer, it was much cooler than in Chennai. So if you wanted to take a break from the heat, if you happen to be there that time of year, Bangalore is a great place to go. We actually could have the windows open in the car and we could inhale that freshness and coolness of the air.
Oh, so it's higher altitude then?
Yes, it must be. It was just the temperature was the complete opposite. I would say it was anywhere from about roughly 20 degrees cooler than being in Chennai. So it was definitely a great change in climate, and I could actually walk freely throughout the city, not worrying about having to break a sweat or anything. So these are basically the main trips.
Okay, I was going to say, I think that's the sites that you wanted to talk about. Anything else that you want to talk about in terms of that people should know before they go to southern India?
Quite a number of surprises that there might be for first-time visitors to India and even specifically South India. So basically just be prepared again for the tremendous traffic that people do not drive inside the lines, as we mentioned earlier. That's something really to be aware
I
of. So
don't
you just
even
have
know if
to
there
pay
are
attention.
lines sometimes. I honestly can't remember whether there are lines yet.
Exactly. So yeah, just that could be overwhelming to some people. So just definitely be careful everywhere you go. Stay alert. Not in terms of that it's unsafe, but there is a lot of, like I said, heavily trafficked areas and so many forms of vehicles on the road, as well as you may or may not know there will be cows and other animals, goats and chickens here and there roaming around. Not too much inner city, I would
Right,
say. I
sure.
didn't see too many within Chennai, but like as you get more and more towards the outskirts, there'll be a lot of those free roaming animals around. And in addition to that, I would say in South India, something that is very distinct about this region as well, and that may be surprising for other tourists, is that the South Indian people are known to eat meals with their hands. So even
Sure.
meals like rice that we typically wouldn't, they do. So that might be something new and surprising to tourists that come there.
Well, and a lot of the food is made to eat that way. So you mentioned the dosa, for instance. So
Yeah.
when you're not at breakfast, you've got something that's wrapped up in the dosa and you're dipping it in your sauce, or you've got your uttapam. That's one of my favorite southern India dishes, which is somewhere between a pancake and a pizza with
That's
things
a good way to describe it.
baked into it. Sometimes onion and tomato or something like that is a really good, but it's made to kind of rip up pieces and eat with.
Definitely. A lot of the food is designed for that. And then at other times, South India is actually very heavy with their rice dishes. So Northern
Right.
India, you'll get a lot of breads with your meal and curry and whatnot. But in South India, it's more or less served with rice. But of course, you can still request bread. It's heavily into the rice as far as the curries and the chutneys and how they eat it. So even with the rice, South Indian people will mix that with their hands and eat with their hands. So it's very, very common. So I think people should definitely be aware of that. And then that's why you'll see a lot of sinks outside the exterior of the bathroom, because people are actually going there to wash their hands before their meal.
Got it. I can't say that I actually remember seeing bread in northern India. We also eat at southern Indian restaurants sometimes, so that confuses things.
Yes, definitely that could be the case. But I know also because I have several friends from the north as well, and that when they were cooking their meals and I was tasting their fresh homemade Indian food, they often would serve it with bread. So I had a
Okay.
friend from Punjabi that would serve naan, for
Oh,
example,
sure, yeah.
with the
That
curry.
area, yeah.
It definitely varies. Whereas in South India, you'll get more of the white rice with your curry.
Got it. And anything you would remember to tell people to pack when they go to southern India?
Yes, well, I guess first and foremost, due to the intense heat, please do make sure to pack your sunblock. Is highly, highly important in this region of the world, and don't go a day without that. Definitely be sure if you want entry into the temples and all the different holy grounds, you need to dress appropriately. So make sure that although you want to dress for the summer style, for example, that you do have sweater or a shawl to cover your shoulders, and that you do even have pants available, because most of India and South India also is very conservative. So a lot of times you will find yourself wearing pants, or most population is going to be wearing pants. Yes, even in the dead heat of the summer, it's very important to do that.
That's where it might be nice not to have jeans like you wear at home, but southern Indian style pants that are a lot more loose and
Yes.
cool.
Lighter fabrics,
Yep.
for sure. Bring lighter fabrics.
Excellent. As we go to wrap this up, you are standing in the prettiest spot in Chennai, or the southern area of India. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go back to, again, the fantastic scenic view I had at the lighthouse
Okay.
at Mahabalipuram. That was the best view. One of the best I've ever had in my travels, and the best view in this region of Tamil Nadu.
And one thing that makes you laugh and say only in Chennai, only in southern India.
I guess just the traffic. What else could I say? Like how insane it is. Yes, that and how amazingly my friends drive there, and how expert you have to be on the roads there. That always amazes me.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize Chennai in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Coastal,
Okay.
seafood,
Oh, okay.
friendliness of the people.
Excellent. And if we wanted to send people to the best post at millennialtraveler2ls.com about Chennai, where are we going to send them?
Yes, so I have quite a few regarding that. My number one would be, of course, the top things to do in Chennai. And I have another post as well talking about Tata Falls specifically. So if you want to hear the details about my journey through the hike in India, you can check that out as well.
Excellent. We'll link to both of those in the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Southern India.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
With that, we'll start to wrap up this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you like what you've heard on Amateur Traveler, please do subscribe. We've got some interesting episodes coming up. We have episodes coming up in the next couple weeks on Virunga National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo, an episode on St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and an episode on Berlin, getting back to Berlin, Germany, which we haven't talked about in a long time. So please do subscribe. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.